This is another podcast from Alpha Business Media. Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a place of, well, incredible spiritual significance, Lumbini, Nepal, the birthplace of Lord Buddha. But the source material you've shared suggests this isn't just about history or spirituality today. It's about a very real, very ambitious potential for Lumbini to transform into a multi-billion-dollar global tourism powerhouse. We've got a stack of material here, essentially a strategic plan digging into this potential, the serious challenges standing in its way, and, a proposed roadmap to unlock it all. Our mission in this deep dive is to cut through all that, understand the core vision for Lumbini, identify the key hurdles, and trace the path they're suggesting to turn this sacred place, this spiritual beacon with truly untapped global resonance, into a major player in religious, spiritual, and even wellness tourism. Why should you care? Because it's a fascinating case study, really. How a place of profound historical and spiritual value is navigating the complexities of the modern global tourism market, facing both immense opportunities and some seriously complex challenges.
What's fascinating here is the dual nature of Lumbini. On one hand, it possesses this, unrivaled historical and spiritual significance as the UNESCO World Heritage Site, marking the exact birthplace of the Buddha. This gives it an intrinsic value recognized universally.
And the potential appeal extends far beyond just the estimated 500 million Buddhists globally, right?
Yeah.
The sources highlight its growing relevance for anyone interested in peace, mindfulness, cultural history, and wellness. It fits perfectly into that rising global trend. I mean, it even grabbed a spot on the New York Times list of best places to visit for 2025.
That wider appeal is absolutely critical for the economic vision. And when you look at the numbers for the global religious tourism market, you see the sheer scale of the opportunity. It's currently estimated at a staggering $1.29 trillion in 2024.
Wow.
And projections show it growing to over $2 trillion by just 2031.
$2 trillion?
Even focusing on the U.S. market alone, it's substantial $34.4 billion this year, potentially hitting almost $80 billion by 2030. These are massive markets where Lumbini theoretically should be a key player.
Wow, those figures really underscore the economic stakes.
Yeah.
So what's the current reality on the ground in Lumbini? The visitor numbers for 2024 were 1.17 million, which was a decent 17.36% increase from the year before.
Yes, and breaking that down is revealing. 759,000 were Nepalese, 300,000 were Indian visitors, and 111,000 were from other foreign countries. That last group, the non-Indian international visitors, saw a particularly impressive growth of over 46% in 2024.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and perhaps a bit paradoxical. That's significant growth, over 17% overall, nearly 50% in that international segment. And the source material also points out that this is happening despite widely acknowledged major infrastructure problems across Nepal and persistent inefficiencies at the nearby Gautam Buddha International Airport, GBIA.
This paradox of growth amid restrictions tells us something powerful. The underlying demand for Lumbini is incredibly strong, maybe even latent. It's currently undersupplied, struggling to handle the demand it already has, let alone the potential.
Right.
Think about the numbers. Again, Lumbini attracts about 1.2 million visitors annually. Compare that to the estimated 500 million global Buddhists. That's a mere 0.24% penetration of its core potential market.
Just 0.24%. Wow.
Then look at other major pilgrimage sites globally. Mecca sees millions just for Hajj, the Vatican draws millions annually, the Golden Temple in Amritsar hosts a staggering 30 million visitors.
That comparison really brings the undervalued magnet concept to life. The sheer gap between the current reality and the potential of reaching even a fraction of that core demographic, let alone the wider wellness market, is staggering. That gap directly points to the multi-billion-dollar opportunity you mentioned.
Absolutely. And the vision outlined in the sources isn't just about handling more visitors at the core Sacred Garden site. A key concept is developing the greater Lumbini circuit. Connecting Lumbini with nearby sites of related historical and spiritual significance. We're talking about Talorikot, the ancient capital where Prince Siddhartha grew up.
Right, the Buddha-to-be.
Ramgram, which is unique for holding an intact relic stupa, and Devdaha, his mother's hometown.
Right, turning what might currently be a quick single-day trip into a multi-day immersive pilgrimage or cultural tour.
Yeah, exactly.
That automatically increases length of stay and visitor expenditure across the region.
Precisely. And this is where the development vision extends beyond just tourism numbers. This kind of integrated development for the greater Lumbini circuit can be a powerful catalyst for broader regional economic development in Western Nepal. It creates demand for local goods and services, supports small and medium enterprises, helps reduce poverty, and aligns perfectly with Nepal's broader national development goals.
Okay.
It's framed not just as a tourism project, but an integrated regional upliftment strategy.
So if that's the immense potential in the current state, how does the strategic plan propose to actually unlock this? It outlines several key pillars for this comprehensive transformation. And the first, and perhaps most fundamental, is addressing that infrastructure challenge you mentioned.
Pillar 1 is explicitly focused on establishing world-class infrastructure and accessibility, and within that, the absolute top priority identified in the sources is the Gautam Buddha International Airport, GBIA.
Okay, GBIA opened in 2022 with great fanfare, but it seems to have faced significant hurdles. You mentioned undercapacity and inconsistent international flights. I saw a note about Thai Air Asia planning to resume flights from October 2025, which is a positive step, but current passenger numbers seem quite low compared to the potential around 8,000 in 2024 and only about 13,000 in the first 3 months of 2025. What are the core issues holding it back, according to the plan?
Well, the key issues cited are the centralization of migration formalities, which still effectively require a stop in Kathmandu for many routes.
Oh, okay.
And a lack of consistent interest from airlines despite offered incentives. The proposed actions in the plan are quite decisive. Immediately decentralize all international arrival and departure formalities to Bairawa, where GBIA is located.
Make it truly international.
So it functions as a true, independent international entry point. Develop an aggressive, data-driven airline route network strategy offering substantial multi-year incentives specifically targeting key Buddhist countries and major international hubs. Ensure operational excellence, meaning full all-weather landing system functionality, and crucially, speed up the planning and construction of a new, larger international terminal because even the current building isn't sufficient for the long-term vision.
So it really sounds like GBIA isn't just one piece of the infrastructure puzzle. The sources frame it as the non-negotiable prerequisite for Lumbini's global ambitions.
Absolutely.
Without a functioning, efficient international airport, attracting millions of global visitors seems impossible.
Exactly. The current situation at GBIA is described as a major deterrent, and success there is also seen as vital for restoring broader confidence in Nepal's aviation infrastructure after issues seen with other new airports like Pokhara.
Right. Beyond air travel, route infrastructure is obviously critical, particularly for enabling that greater Lumbini circuit experience. We know key highways like Narayang-Hatbutwal are still under slow upgrade, and generally, road conditions in Nepal can be challenging for tourists.
The plan acknowledges this directly. It suggests expediting the completion of major highways to international standards. But more specifically for Lumbini, it proposes creating a dedicated network of well-paved, clearly signposted Great Lumbini Circuit roads.
Okay.
Designed specifically for tourist buses and vehicles, connecting all the key sites seamlessly. They also propose modernizing local transport within the circuit with comfortable, eco-friendly options like electric buses and e-rickshaws, and implementing intelligent traffic management systems to ease congestion.
Makes sense. If you want people to spend multiple days visiting several sites, travel between them has to be easy, comfortable, and reliable. What about basic public services and digital connectivity? Power outages and unreliable internet are often issues outside major urban centers in Nepal.
Sustainable local public services and digital transformation are also critical components of this first pillar. The suggested actions prioritize reliable, ideally green energy sources, like solar.
Leveraging Nepal's potential there.
Exactly, alongside advanced water supply and waste management systems. On the digital front, providing widespread high-speed internet access and launching a comprehensive Smart Lumbini initiative is proposed. This would involve developing an official multilingual app for the circuit with interactive maps, AR/VR overlays for sites, booking services, digital ticketing, and real-time information.
Positioning Lumbini not just as a historical site, but potentially a model for Nepal's digital and green development aspirations. That's a broad vision for Pillar First. Okay, let's move to Pillar the Second, improving customer service and product diversification. This seems to focus on what the visitor actually experiences once they arrive. And it starts with the master plan itself. There was an original Kenzo Tange plan from 1978, reportedly about 70% done with billions of rupees spent, but still with key elements unfinished. And now there's the idea of this broader Lumbini Grand Master Plan encompassing all the circuit sites.
The source material is quite candid about the slow progress on the original plan. It's seen as highlighting significant governance and funding issues. The proposed actions are to secure dedicated funding to complete the remaining 30% of the original plan, formally adopt and resource the broader Grandmaster Plan for the circuit, integrating modern sustainable design principles. They argue that actual implementation of any master plan needs a new, high-level, autonomous governance model with guaranteed dedicated funding.
A different way of managing it.
Perhaps suggesting a greater Lumbini development authority, because the decades of delays suggest existing structure aren't sufficient for a project of this scale.
So the plan identifies that implementing the plan itself requires a fundamental shift in how it's managed, and who has the authority and resources to execute it. What about where people stay? The sources point out a need for more variety and higher quality accommodation beyond existing options.
Pillar 2 definitely addresses accommodation. The suggestion is to zone areas for different types of lodging to cater to diverse visitors, from luxury hotels and mid-range options to budget guest houses, wellness retreats focused on meditation and peace,
Ah, interesting.
and even potentially monastery-style lodging for a more traditional pilgrim experience. They aim to encourage investment in quality, eco-certified hotels and actively support community-based tourism guest houses in surrounding villages. The idea is that accommodation should be part of the spiritual or wellness experience itself, designed to reflect Buddhist aesthetics and sustainability principles.
Not just a bed for the night, but part of the immersive journey. That ties directly into the concept of structured pilgrimage routes and programs for the greater Lumbini circuit.
Exactly. To encourage visitors to spend multiple days and visit multiple sites, the plan emphasizes developing and clearly marking various routes. Think footsteps of Buddha routes that guide visitors chronologically or thematically. They propose creating specific theme tours focusing on Buddhist art, meditation practices, historical archaeology, or engaging with living Buddhist traditions.
Tailoring the experience.
Right. Collaboration with international Buddhist and academic institutions for accredited courses or retreats is suggested, alongside developing local cultural exchange programs. The key objective here is offering a multi-level spectrum of experiences catering to different visitor interests, whether they were devout pilgrims, cultural tourists, researchers, or wellness seekers, and encouraging varying lengths of stay.
In underpinning all of this, basic visitor services and interpretation need a significant upgrade, I presume.
Right. Modernizing museums across the circuit, installing clear multilingual signage throughout the sites and circuit roads, training knowledgeable multilingual local guides,
Crucial.
ensuring clean, accessible facilities like toilets, water, and rest areas, and implementing robust safety and security measures are all detailed in Pillar 6. Professionalizing these services is also seen as a direct way to create essential, skilled local jobs and vocational training opportunities for youth in the region.
That makes perfect sense. A positive experience relies on comfortable, safe, and informative details on the ground. Okay, let's move to pillar the third, strategic global marketing and partnerships. With the infrastructure and visitor experience addressed, how do you actually reach those 500 million potential visitors and the wider audience?
Target marketing is identified as crucial here. The sources suggest identifying key markets, obviously India and China are enormous, but also countries with significant Buddhist populations like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Korea, Japan, and Vietnam,
The core markets.
as well as Western countries showing high interest in wellness and mindfulness tourism. The plan suggests developing highly tailored campaigns for distinct segments, one for pilgrimage, one for heritage and culture, and one for wellness and retreat markets. These campaigns would utilize targeted digital marketing, social media, strategic partnerships with international Buddhist organizations, and traditional roadshows.
The source material specifically highlights addressing concerns for certain key markets, like safety perceptions for Indian tourists and overcoming ease of access and airfare barriers for Chinese tourists.
Yes, those are seen as specific friction points that marketing needs to navigate and often require coordination with policy or infrastructure fixes addressed in pillars of first. The China opportunity is particularly complex, despite China's large Buddhist population and Nepal even declaring 2025 Visit Nepal year with a focus on China. Arrivals haven't met expectations. The plan notes this is partly due to high airfares and potentially restrictive package tours that don't necessarily benefit local businesses. It suggests actively working with Chinese operators to develop more inclusive packages and pushing for direct flights with competitive pricing.
Leveraging national and regional tourism platforms, like the broader Visit Nepal Year 2025 campaign, and even regional initiatives like Visit Pokhara 2025, must also be part of the strategy.
Absolutely. The plan stresses that Lumbini needs to be a central highlight in all relevant national and provincial tourism promotion campaigns. Developing joint packages that link a Lumbini visit with other iconic Nepali destinations like the cultural sites in Kathmandu Valley, the adventure activities in Pokhara, or the wildlife in Chitwan National Park creates powerful cross-promotion synergies,
Makes the whole trip more attractive.
enhancing Nepal's overall attractiveness as a multifaceted destination.
Achieving this scale of marketing and development clearly requires strategic alliances with a wide range of players: airlines, global tour operators, international hotel chains, Buddhist organizations, and international bodies like UNESCO and development finance institutions.
Yes, the sources frame transforming Lumbini as a truly collaborative effort, a joint imperative, which we'll get back to. Actively seeking partnerships for direct GBIA routes is highlighted as Paramount Airlines need a compelling business case built on guaranteed traffic.
Right.
Attracting global tour operators who can bring large visitor volumes and reputable international hotel brands for quality standards is key. Collaborating with international Buddhist groups for promoting the spiritual significance and content development, and seeking technical and financial aid from bodies like UNESCO and DFIs for conservation and sustainable infrastructure are all vital components of Pillar the Third.
And with Nepal's increasing digitalization and relatively high mobile penetration, digital promotion and modern branding are non-negotiable, right?
Definitely. The plan calls for developing a world-class, multilingual digital portal for Lumbini and the greater circuit, featuring things like virtual tours, online booking capabilities, and rich historical and spiritual content. Implementing targeted social media campaigns, actively collaborating with international travel bloggers and influencers, and proactively managing the online reputation are essential. Most importantly, the branding needs to evolve, positioning Lumbini not just as a historical site, but as a living center of peace, spiritual renewal, and potentially even a model for sustainable tourism.
Living center, I like that.
Leveraging authentic user-generated content is seen as a powerful marketing tool, too.
Moving to Pillar the Fourth, sustainable development and community empowerment. This sounds like the crucial counterbalance to the potential pitfalls of mass tourism and pure commercialization.
Exactly. The sources emphasize that sustainable tourism means ensuring the economic, social, and environmental benefits actually flow to the local communities surrounding Lumbini and the circuit sites. Pillar 4 focuses heavily on promoting community-based tourism, CBT initiatives, in surrounding villages, things like homestays, showcasing local food, promoting local handicrafts and art.
The authentic experience.
Right. Providing targeted training and access to microfinance or small loans for local entrepreneurs, and ensuring communities are actively involved in the planning and decision-making processes are seen as essential.
Positioning CBT as a tool for providing authentic visitor experiences while also driving poverty reduction and aligning with Nepal's broader development goals.
It's about ensuring the development is inclusive and genuinely benefits the people who live there. Integrating green finance and sustainable operations is also a major theme. Given Nepal's national commitment to green development and local banks beginning to offer green loan products, the plan proposes mandatory green building standards for all new construction.
Setting the standard.
Aggressively promoting renewable energy sources like solar within the circuit, implementing advanced waste and water management systems, encouraging local sourcing for materials and goods, and seeking international green certifications for tourism businesses.
So this is where the Green Lumbini concept really takes shape.
Yes, positioning Lumbini as a global model for green pilgrimage or sustainable spiritual tourism can be a powerful brand differentiator on the international stage, potentially attracting eco-conscious tourists and impact investors. It strongly aligns with Buddhist teachings of compassion and respect for nature and creates a unique selling proposition.
That makes a lot of sense.
The sources even suggest allocating a dedicated percentage of future tourism revenue directly to a conservation and sustainable development fund.
Building local capacity through skill development is mentioned as crucial for long-term sustainability under this pillar.
Absolutely critical. You can't rely solely on external expertise. The plan suggests establishing dedicated vocational training centers in the region, focusing on skills needed for the tourism sector, hospitality management, professional guiding, sustainable tourism practices, digital skills for the SMART initiatives.
Practical skills.
Partnering for internships with existing businesses and prioritizing local employment are key, including financial literacy and business management training for local SMEs and CBT operators is also highlighted as important for empowering them.
Because if the local community isn't equipped, they won't benefit long-term. And finally, perhaps most fundamentally, under this pillar is heritage preservation. The risks of over-tourism, insensitive development, and commercialization are very real for a sacred site.
This is the absolute foundation upon which everything else must be built. The plan stresses strict adherence to UNESCO guidelines for the World Heritage Site, conducting detailed capacity studies and implementing visitor management strategies for sensitive areas.
Managing the flow.
And investing significantly in ongoing archaeological research and conservation work across all the greater Lumbini circuit sites, not just the main garden. Raising awareness among visitors and the local community about the importance of conservation is also vital. The sources emphasize that conservation must be an ongoing, adaptive process, and that sustainable funding, like that dedicated conservation fund, is essential to protect the very asset that draws visitors.
So those are the comprehensive pillars outlined in the strategic plan. But even with the best roadmap, actually getting there won't be easy. What are the main difficulties and risks highlighted in the sources that could derail this ambitious vision?
Well, overcoming difficulties involves tackling not just Lumbini-specific issues, but broader systemic problems within Nepal's tourism sector and the country itself. The sources explicitly list challenges like the poor state of national road infrastructure, unstable air traffic, and inefficient operation at new airports like Pokhara, as well as GBIA.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Persistent congestion at Kathmandu's Tribhuvan International Airport, TIA, policy inconsistency, bureaucratic hurdles, and overall political instability. The plan implicitly acknowledges that Lumbini's success is deeply intertwined with the overall health and functioning of Nepal's national tourism ecosystem.
And how does the plan suggest mitigating these broader national issues? It seems like a tall order.
It involves significant advocacy and coordination, lobbying nationally for priority infrastructure development that benefits Lumbini, promoting stable, long-term tourism policies, and simplified approval processes for tourism investment.
Cutting red tape.
And critically, improving interdepartmental coordination within the government. The plan suggests Lumbini can potentially even serve as a catalyst for broader national tourism reform by demonstrating successful best practices in planning, implementation, and sustainable management.
Using Lumbini as a positive example. Okay. Another significant and timely challenge highlighted is Nepal's inclusion in the FATF gray list in February 2025 due to deficiencies in its anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing system. That sounds serious.
Yes, this is a serious concern. Inclusion on the gray list can have several consequences. Damage to a country's financial reputation, potentially reduced foreign investment, and increased transaction costs for businesses and even individuals. For the tourism sector, it could complicate international financial transactions for hotels, tour operators, and potentially even pose issues for tourists using international payment methods.
So how do you work around that?
The plan suggests mitigation involves transparent communication about Nepal's action plan to exit the list, strengthening AMLC-FT compliance specifically within the tourism sector, like hotels and tour operators, and ensuring uninterrupted payment channels for tourists. It's framed as a systemic issue that the country is addressing, but one that adds complexity for attracting investment, as you mentioned earlier. Exactly. And it also presents an opportunity to improve overall financial transparency and formalize practices within the tourism sector, potentially reducing the informal or shadow economy.
Finding the silver lining. Okay. Finally, geopolitical influences are mentioned, given Nepal's sensitive location between India and China. Initiatives like China's Visit Nepal Year 2025 can have geopolitical undertones, and there are ongoing concerns from India regarding development and influence in the region.
Developing a sensitive, strategic location like Lumbini on a massive scale inevitably attracts geopolitical interest. The challenge is ensuring the development proceeds in a way that ensures long-term stability and doesn't become a point of contention. The plan suggests mitigation strategies include maintaining a balanced foreign policy that clearly welcomes cooperation from all international partners while prioritizing projects that have transparent benefits for Nepal and the local community. Building broad international support for Lumbini as a zone of peace and international cooperation is proposed.
A zone of peace.
Perhaps by hosting international conferences or dialogues there, specifically to help depoliticize its development and emphasize its universal message.
That's a clever way to leverage its core spiritual identity to navigate a political challenge. Let's talk about the money side of things. What kind of investment is needed to realize this multi-billion-dollar vision, and what's the projected economic impact?
Well, the plan identifies significant investment areas across all the pillars. Substantial capital needed for infrastructure, GBIA, Roads, digital networks.
The big-ticket items.
Right. Investment in hospitality, developing the range and quality of accommodation, funding for visitor services and experiences, museum upgrades, training, smart initiatives, and investment in SME development and community tourism initiatives. Given the sheer scale, public-private partnerships, PPPs, are seen as absolutely crucial, especially for large-scale projects like airport operations, developing new hotels, and implementing smart city solutions.
But are PPPs easy in Nepal?
Well, the sources note that Nepal's existing PPP framework needs clearer rules, fairer risk-sharing mechanisms, and policy stability to genuinely attract the necessary scale of international and domestic private investors. A special expedited PPP framework specifically tailored for Lumbini projects is suggested.
Streamlining it for Lumbini. Okay. And what about the promised multi-billion-dollar dividend? How does that manifest?
This refers to the projected economic impact if the plan is successfully implemented. It breaks down into several components: direct income from tourist spending on accommodation, food, transport, activities, and shopping.
The obvious stuff.
Right. Then, indirect income generated in related industries that supply the tourism sector, like agriculture, manufacturing, and construction. Induced income from the spending of people whose jobs are created or supported by tourism. Significant foreign currency income for Nepal. Massive job creation, both direct and indirect, and ultimately a greater contribution to Nepal's national GDP, which currently receives around 6.7% from tourism nationally.
The plan offers an illustrative forecast to give a sense of the scale.
Yes, it uses examples. For instance, it suggests that attracting just 3 million international visitors annually, with a conservative average spend of $500 per visitor, which is modest for international travelers,
To be modest, yeah.
could yield $1.5 billion in direct tourism revenue alone. With typical multiplier effects in a developing economy, the total economic impact, the dividend, would be significantly higher, easily reaching multi-billion-dollar figures and positioning Lumbini as a major engine for economic growth, specifically for Western Nepal.
Huge potential impact. And where do the sources suggest investors are likely to see the highest returns within this plan?
Investments in the core enabling infrastructure, particularly GBIA and crucial access roads, are seen as foundational. While perhaps lower direct tourism returns, they are essential for unlocking the demand that drives returns elsewhere.
Got to build the roads first.
Exactly. Investments in high-quality, differentiated visitor experiences, such as luxury wellness retreats, unique cultural programs, or accredited study programs, are expected to yield higher returns per visitor by attracting higher-spending tourists. There's also seen to be a first-mover advantage for investors willing to enter currently underserved niche segments like luxury eco-lodges or specialized spiritual retreat centers accredited by international Buddhist bodies.
Fascinating. It's a comprehensive vision with clear economic goals, but also significant hurdles. So, pulling it all together, what's the ultimate core takeaway message from the strategic plan for unlocking Lumbini's potential?
The key takeaway is framed as the joint imperative. Realizing Lumbini's destiny as a leading world tourist destination requires coordinated, committed action from all stakeholders involved.
Meaning everyone has to play their part decisively. No single group can do it alone.
Exactly. The government of Nepal needs to provide consistent policy support, prioritize national infrastructure that serves Lumbini, champion the vision nationally and internationally, create a stable and attractive investment climate, and effectively address systemic issues like the FATF gray listing. The Lumbini Development Trust and local authorities must effectively implement the master plans on the ground, ensure rigorous conservation standards, lead community engagement, and manage operations efficiently.
Okay.
The private sector, both domestic and international, is needed to provide the necessary investment and bring global best practices in hospitality, services, and technology. International partners like UNESCO, various DFIs, and international Buddhist organizations need to provide ongoing technical expertise, financial aid, and global promotion. And crucially, the local communities must be active participants, empowered as entrepreneurs, and recognized as the essential custodians of the heritage.
It's a vision that clearly requires overcoming not just isolated project challenges, but significant systemic issues across the country, and demands a truly coordinated long-term commitment from every single player involved to turn this potential into reality.
Precisely.
Thank you for guiding us through this complex strategic plan and breaking down the vision, the challenges, and the roadmap for Lumbini. It's incredible to see the level of detail and ambition involved in transforming a place with such deep spiritual roots into a potential multi-billion-dollar global hub.
My pleasure. It's a unique case study, really fascinating.
And for you, the listener, reflect on this journey we've taken, from understanding Lumbini's profound spiritual significance and its current reality, through the detailed plan for transformation, to the significant hurdles that stand in the way. It raises a fundamental question for anyone watching this space. Given its unique spiritual foundation, the sheer scale of its untapped potential, and the complexity of the challenges ahead, the infrastructure gaps, the geopolitical currents, the delicate balance between economic growth and preserving sacred authenticity, can Lumbini truly navigate all of this to awaken and fulfill its destiny as a global giant in tourism and spirituality?
An important question indeed, and one the world will certainly be watching.
And that concludes this deep dive.